So day 3, and today we get to carry on crocheting in our colour 2. So pick up where we left off yesterday, and before we actually tackle the front post, back post, we're just going to do 1 row of trebles, which will set that up so that we can front post, back post around them. So chain 2 exactly as you were doing to do our first one, and then go along and do your trebles. So that is row 7 that I've just completed there. So that's my first row in my colour 2. And now it's time to do our first row of front post, back post. So what we're going to do is turn the work, chain 2 in the same way that we have been doing, like that. And then we're going to start in the second stitch doing a front post, back post repeat. So what it means by the second stitch is this here is our second stitch. We're going to ignore that one there. We're going to go into this one here. So to do a front post, we yarn around the hook in exactly the same way that we've been doing to do our treble. But rather than going into the stitch, we're going to go underneath. So in between that one and that one, like that, and then up through. So it pulls this one here forwards. So then you're actually going to be working your treble as normal, but around that treble that sits on the row beneath it. So in through to the point where you've got your 3 loops on your hook, yarn over through the first 2 and yarn over and through that one. So that is your first front post treble. Now we're going to do a back post treble. So yarn round your hook first, and this one's a little bit more awkward. What you need to do is bring your hook underneath the work. So you see how that's your front post one that's there, underneath the work and up through the gap between the one that you've just done, over the top of the next one, and then you work your treble. So in and through like that. So this is effectively making a crocheted rib. Really useful for hat rims and everything like that. It gives you a lovely, really squishy, kind of stretchy texture. So that was our front post, that was our back post. Now we're on a front post again. So yarn round the hook. That's your back post. You see how it's been pushed away from you? So this time we're going to do a front post. So we're going to come in the top, underneath to pull it forward to the front, yarn over, through to your 3 loops, and finish off your treble. Then a back post, so yarn round that hook. This is the one where you've got to push it backwards from yourself. So come underneath, over the top of the treble, so it pushes it away from you. And then finish off your treble. So then for on a front post again. Then a back post. Now this is going to feel, if this is you doing this for the first time, it's going to feel pretty alien as you start to do it, but it's such a satisfying pattern once you get going. So round your hook. If you ever need to check where you're at, it should be very obvious to you that these ones are front posts. So do you see how you can see these leap forwards towards you? They're your fronts, there's your backs, there's your front, that's a back, so that means we're on a front next. And when you get to the end, you will finish. You see how that's my chain where I turned? You will need to front post that final chain like that, just to keep that nice and even. So your final one will be a front post before you turn, and then we'll be continuing in the same pattern to create that lovely rib texture. So this second part of the first square uses approximately 8 grams. Obviously, all of our weights are stated really approximately. It depends on your tension, etc. In that stitch. So approximately 8 grams is what you're going to need. So at this stage, I've done 1 row of trebles and then 1 row of that first front post, back post. So I'm just going to go through the beginning bit again for you because it's probably the turn that's the only bit that's a bit more tricky. So you're going to chain 2 again like we have been doing. And then all you need to remember is if you look at the texture like that, it should be nice and obvious to you, even just after that first row, that these are your front posts and that these are your back posts, because your front posts are obviously facing off the fabric up towards you. So whenever you do that first front post, remember to miss this on the end. It's going to be through that as a continuation of that front post that you want, because that'll give you the nice even rib right the way up. So round your hook, in to do your first front post, having missed the one on the end. First front post, back in for the back post on the second one. So go right the way along. But say you feel like your yarn's going to run out, as mine is going to here. If you are using scraps, what I just want to show you is how you would join in another ball of yarn, because say you only had a bit, like 4 grams off there, and you want to join in another bit, then I'll show you how to attach that on neatly. So the neatest and safest way to join in a new piece of yarn is to leave yourself a long length like that on the one that's ending. So don't run it until you've only got a couple of centimetres. Leave yourself a long length like that and then get the ball that you're joining in. Now, obviously I'm carrying on in the same colour. It's not that I'm going to be changing colour at all. It's effectively what I'm showing you is if I was using scraps and one piece had ran out. So where I would find it best to do it would be, I'm doing a back post next, because obviously that's my front post there. So go round your hook, in and for your back post like that. Yarn over, and like we did with the colour change, so I'm finishing that off in my number 1 piece of yarn, so the one that's going to end with an end. Then all I will do is give myself an end on my second one. So again, don't join it too close, keep it about the same length as the other, and finish off that stitch with the ball of yarn that I'm joining in. And then you can just leave those 2 ends where you are. Now, if you're at this stage of the pattern where the rows are quite short, you obviously could do it at the end and it will ultimately be neater. You won't have to sew in as much. But once we get to these big panels later on, you won't have that luxury of that option of landing it on the end every time. So that's how I would join in another ball of yarn. What it will leave you with is 2 ends like that in the middle of the panel. You don't need to worry about them so long as you've left it long enough. They're not unsecure or anything like that. They won't unravel. We will sew those in later on, and I'll show you all that further down the line. So you can just leave them there like that. It doesn't matter if they're on the right side or the wrong side. When we sew them in, they'll disappear completely. So then just carry on with your front post, back post panel, making sure that it is absolutely in line. So you're always going to be front posting your front posts, you're always going to be back posting your back posts, and that's what gives you that lovely line of ridges and textures as we carry on. So when you finish the end of today's piece, you'll be breaking that yarn, because tomorrow we've got the excitement of rejoining and actually crocheting down one side of this square for the first time. So carry on. Complete your pattern for today and then break your yarn, leave that square as it is, and you'll need colour 3 as we restart tomorrow. So at the end of day 3, you will have finished your front post, back post panel that is attached onto this first one, and that forms that central square. So all I want to go through really is the fact that obviously because it is a rib, it pulls in the first one. That is absolutely accounted for. All you need to do is square it up like that. Once we actually start crocheting to the sides, that will all correct, and then we will obviously be blocking at the end as well. So that will stop it pulling in like a rib. So all you need to do is not worry about it, pull it out so it's nice and square. Fasten off that yarn because we're not going to be carrying on. It's the first time we need to fasten it off and then pull it through so it's secure. Then turn over your square so that you've got your right side facing. This is going to be really important because then as we move on to tomorrow, we're going to be actually making this bubbled panel here. So we've got these two. And as we go on to tomorrow, it's time to get your colour 3 ready. And it's the first time that we're going to be crocheting down the edge to avoid any sewing up at the end.